My name is Danny. I run a channel called Dodford on YouTube. They're monthly documentaries, very high production quality, highly edited, creative productions that I put a lot of time into. They're called pop culture portraits, so they are documentaries about people I find inspiring in pop culture. In film, TV, music, etc. And they're, pretty much the lives and stories that I feel are impactful, that I want to tell in a creative way, hopefully in a way that no one's ever thought of doing before. I was always trying to push the boundaries creatively every time.
Unlike any creator, Athletic Greens and Story Blocks and Epidemic Sound and more, your integrations felt maybe a little bit more traditional, but I think over the last year or so, they've become increasingly cinematic. So
if you don't see a YouTuber and you're just being immersed into a story, you kind of forget what platform you're on. And so I didn't want my ads to sponsored segments to be as cinematic as the rest of the video, and that means coming up with some sort of fictionalized real setting that exists.
I am Iron Man.
I just want to do whatever I want.
When it comes to editing and, retention-based editing,
he actually does the work of collecting segments and sound bites.
Across his subject's career,
he uses complex editing and storytelling techniques
to allow the personality to tell their own story.
Honestly, the skill set that Dodford has is absolutely incredible.
Well, it's not about speed. It's about how effective you are with your cuts.
Please welcome Donald Glover.
Donald Glover.
Hello, my name is Adam Sandler. Can I get a hell yeah?
And we didn't have that context. And then you showed that clip again at the end.
And I am the 2023 Mark Twain Humor Prize Award recipient.
And it kind of felt like there was like a beautiful moment for me seeing that clip again. Why did you bookend the entire documentary with that sequence?
I love going full circle in everything. And I think you'll find it recurs a lot in these videos.
What do you think happens when we die, Keanu Reeves?
I like to introduce a question at the beginning and then answer it at the end.
I know that the ones who love us will miss us.
And whether that's, an expositional, something obvious where you actually hear the ending of a sentence, or it's something bigger, like in that one, we are seeing the same play, but this time at the end, we have the whole emotional context. We've been through his whole journey. So now when you get to that starting point again, you're there with him and you feel like you're standing on stage with him. So that was one decision. Sometimes it's just, I want to start a sentence and then finish it later, just so, again, you're going through the journey with them, and that way it's more rewarding.
The Adam Sandler paradox.
I really pushed that as far as I could. In an almost 20-minute video, there's less than 90 seconds of narration. I didn't show my face in it whatsoever, so it's all pushing myself as much as I can to use visual storytelling and stringing clips together. I'm looking for any ways to say a point, but then not say it blatantly and obviously.
Keanu's enthusiasm meant he dove headfirst into everything he did.
I can always think of a clever way of making the audience feel like they're coming up with it themselves. Blue links and hyperlinks, that's when I'll go through and I will structure them out and find an order, see where things link. I go in and I really scrutinize, like on a line-by-line level. I'm moving things around, hyper-analyzing why one line should go before another. I'm cutting up quotes and I'm putting things in between. I'm kind of writing a montage on the Google document before it goes into the project. Then like I said, I'm just following instructions. Just write montage. I used to put it in brackets, like I'll make a montage here. So now I'll just copy and paste them and I'll write as if I'm writing an essay. So you can take a script from one of my videos and read it like an essay.
Always be good at math. You'll always be good at naming stars.
I was with Ben. He got a Walk of Fame star, and I went and visited him, and I said, we got to do a movie together, right?
Son of a bitch! Dad, stop yelling in the car. He cannot hear you.
It's hard for me to explain this right now, but essentially we're cutting between him and his daughter singing, him and his daughter in a looking for a parking spot in their car, also cutting between Adam and Ben Stiller about to fight on the grass. And these three things are building up in unison.
Mommy and Daddy and Genius Girl make three.
And I said, we could play brothers. He said, yeah, I was thinking that too.
You got my hands, you got my toes.
But luckily, I got mommy's nose.
I was disappointed in you for quitting piano.
And then we talked to Noah, and he was thinking a similar thought.
Adam connected to something very deeply in this guy.
And we lucked out, got to do this together.
And it was deep, and that was, it was very moving to me.
Just get it together!
And they're all cut to the same time. So essentially 3 things that I wanted to like take from the movie, but they were all building up together at the same time while also giving exposition about the production.
You put the movie in italics, you then put the actual movie clip in as a hyperlink, and you're cutting between them all, and then also you then put in the brackets, probably just like the action in the movie as well. That's fascinating. And so like, I can still see which one you cut, like you do need to cut to, but just seeing a montage written out like this, I've never seen anything like this before.
It's what came naturally to me. I think this is how I like to visualize it. I am not well-versed in any real storytelling structures. Sometimes I try and articulate it and I try and put a framework and I tie it up in a ribbon. It's always that ends up being this one person that inspires me. This is the part of the story that not everyone knows about. These are the obstacles that they overcame that are also not necessarily a secret, but are missing from kind of popular knowledge. And so it's just that simple, like 3-act structure. It's just always about what's the low point, how did they overcome it, and how did they get to the high point.
You have no idea how many editors hate you now because you have that instinct.
Whenever you can go out into the rain, do not miss the opportunity.
I love the rain.
You only need 2 huge hits a year that go outside your bubble to completely change the trajectory of your channel.
That's Danny McMahon, but you might know him from his channel Dodford. Danny is one of the hottest rising YouTubers right now. His documentaries have done about 20 million views since January of 2023.
I went to film school because the plan was always traditional movie industry. Make my own films, become a director or a writer. That was always the #1 plan, at least since about age 16, 17 onwards. I was just obsessed with people like Tarantino and like real cinema. And that was my way forward that I only saw myself pursue an Instagram account and just started making little tiny crappy videos for my 40 followers, which is the origin of Dodford. That's where it became its first thing. I made a TikTok to match it too. Those started growing. After 3 years of studying film and falling in love with that, it took 2 weeks of doing content creation where I realized, oh, this is way more fun. This is way more rewarding immediately. I think something that holds a lot of people back in the traditional way out of film school is, yes, you think, I'm going to take everything I've learned in these last 3-4 years and put it into the script, and it's going to be me. It's going to be an essence of everything I've learned, and it's going to be the best script ever. People are going to buy it. And people pour months and months and months into making one film or script they're going to dish out, and it doesn't hit the way they dreamed it would. And that holds people back. Whereas I'm not saying this was something that was premeditated, but something afforded to me straight away by doing short form content was, you make something, you try it out, you put it out, you reap the benefits or you learn the lessons, and then do it again the next day. You've got to iterate. That's always the key early on, finding out what your mark is, your style, what your identity is as a creator and as a person. And when that's going to slowly form and evolve, looking back now in retrospect, that's where so many of my skills and benefits were birthed and were improved. So I do give it as like, that's my piece of advice that I give to most young creators and filmmakers who are trying to find their feet or learn something about the industry, is just keep posting content. It doesn't even have to go out really to an audience or people. As long as you make it and you're giving yourself a challenge and doing something different every single day, that's like the easiest way forward, in my opinion. I had a few early hits and, some that did really well. But overall, if you look at my TikTok, you'll see that through most of it, I was below average views for my follower count. And I always felt like I was looking up to these huge creators who were raking in millions of views. And it was actually during that period where I started to realize that the reason I create not really got anything to do with the number that comes after. A few of them really in my whole TikTok career, I always felt like I was never really a big star on the platform. Changes. I did some, like I said, where I've got to do this idea today and put it out just because it was part of my routine. Others I would spend maybe a week on. And I think you'll be able to tell, if you went through and watched old videos, you'd be able to tell those ones that had a little bit more thought and production value put in. I've always felt like the video takes as long as it takes. And I can't say that I've completely detached from that. Like I said, I think it was during this era when I felt like my views didn't reflect the effort I was putting into videos. And that I definitely feel the pressure still today, but that's not the reason I create. It's got really nothing to do with that second half influence it has. It's more so the process it was for me as a filmmaker, as a creative. How did it affect me? And don't come up as a digit or a stat. It's something that's like more invisible. And those are the reasons that you actually create. And I never try to forget that. There is always a happy middle ground where you try and eliminate that risk by not pouring so much time into something that in the back of your head feel like isn't worth it to you. So it is always finding a peaceful place in the middle, but obviously the pressure still exists. A bit of growth, it all rises rapidly, and because your whole library's there just ready to be seen, everything else grows with it. That felt very rapid. Truly feel like you only need 2 huge hits a year that go outside your bubble to completely change the trajectory of your channel. And it's happened to me maybe 1.5 times this year. And I can credit most of my growth to just a couple videos, which is, there's many ways of seeing that. I'm grateful for it, but also, again, it's pressure in finding that special video that can do that. And in the meantime, just trusting your content regardless and enjoying it anyway. And the main one is Adam Sandler. That one goes without saying. It's by far my most viewed video, about 5 million. Yeah, that single-handedly took me from 100K to 200K, essentially. It almost doubled my follower count. Jim Carrey recently has been another one that's similar. And also Donald Glover right at the beginning of the year. That kind of, in January, that was one of my first documentaries, maybe the first one really, that truly skyrocketed, and people like ended up, KSI ended up watching that one. And all it takes is one shout out or one share from the right person, and then everything blows up exponentially. That happened with Mr. Beast for my Adam Sandler video. He just tweeted that he saw it and said it was a good video. And that just makes it grow further. I like that YouTube seems to be being seen by everyone, and you never know who that lucky person could be, which could change your life. And that's happened to me many, many times. That Sidemen one, I still see as a video essay, but there are moments of it that feel more like a documentary. It was an objective, it was a challenge of mine from the beginning to have the Sidemen see that. I chose them because, one, I've been watching them my whole life and I know a lot about them, and so I had a lot to say. But I also knew that they were accessible, and this type of thing hadn't been made about them before. And there was a gap in the market where I could create a video that they could see and react to, which is what they did eventually. It was an amazing moment because it was the first time after creating for about 2 years where I'd kind of finally got access to what felt like this inner circle, in a way, of all these people that I'd looked up to. I made so many connections. It's when my network really opened up around then. After that video, lots of the UK community sort of noticed me, which was really, really fun. And then after that, it was Donald Glover. In that era, there was no premeditation or planning beyond the day before I decided to make the video. So that Sidemen one, it was a good idea that hit me as a spark on a weekend. And I realized, okay, here's something I can do. I will start this immediately and have it up hopefully by 2 weekends time. And that was the way it was for this year. I learned the importance of just the idea alone and the time that it comes. And so the big learning experience really for me was Drew Barrymore. Up to that point, for most of 2023 and immediately following Adam Sandler, I kind of had this confidence where it didn't really matter what the subject was of these videos. It was just the way we presented them and the production quality, the type of storytelling we did, the way it was, the packaging, all of that stuff. I was just having all these hits, and it was because of us. It was the way we created them. And that definitely is true for most of it. But when Drew Barrymore was put out, that was the first real stinker. It was the first time it didn't hit expectations, and it hurt me in my heart. And I learned then the true, this has to, one, really appeal to your audience, and it has to come at a time when there's a discussion, whether it's a conscious discussion that's really happening on the internet, or it's a thing that everyone's just kind of quietly thinking about. And so since then, all these videos have to be planned and thought months in advance, and we look really far into the future. So I have all the way up until December next year, December 2024, all videos for each month. I really feel like we could make the best video we possibly could, and it would just come out at the wrong month of the year, and it wouldn't hit the way that it should or could. I think a hit, an immediate hit, isn't really that important to me on a cellular level, but will attest to that you can't shake that thing off you, that when something is a 10 out of 10 straight away, it stinks straight out of the gate. That's always going to hurt. And so I think for me on our channel, it's making these productions that meanwhile trying to mitigate that potential hurt of something not finding an audience. So it has to be, again, that balance of making something for us, but also making something for the people. And there's got to be a Venn diagram where that video sits right in the middle. Otherwise, it's going to go to a large audience, but it's not going to be fulfilling to you. Or it's the opposite, where it's a real big passion project, but no one really cares about it. For me, a hit is when it hits both of those things, when I'm proud of it and other people, it really speaks to other people. But I do want to grow the audience, and I want to make sure that, we're proud of what we make. So I want more eyes on it, really, but never sacrificing that passion, that way that we would tell stories. Just me, my researcher, Adam, he assists a lot with the story as well as researching, and my producer, Jaden, who just kind of keeps me on track and makes sure that, and he helps a lot with the packaging. I also have Dan, who mixes the sound, and my manager, Gil, he helps a lot with the brands. So it's, I don't know, maybe a team of 5 altogether who work on the videos. But for me, I'm still scripting and editing it all myself. Ever since I hired, and there are people who are on a payroll, and it's an extra layer of accountability now, where as soon as that happened and I realized, okay, it takes an investment now every month to get these videos out. I definitely saw the whole business and project in a different way, in a different light. I just saw it in a new way, where it's an art, it's a slightly different art. The science of analyzing, if we're going to invest this much money into something, how can we make sure that it makes a return? How can we make sure that this is a safe bet that's going to provide the business with more money, essentially? For me, actually, it's been fun trying to identify how can we just make sure that this ship stays afloat, essentially. I've never done that before, but here we are. Coming right off that cliff of Adam Sandler, where everything felt easy. I felt like I'd sussed out the formula. This was a trajectory that wasn't going to falter at all. And then you have your first real stumble, and I had to find my feet again. I would have kind of even been offended by it, like as if that's something that matters to me that much. But because that's what was happening, and I was putting out these videos that were getting hundreds of thousands, millions of views, just with either a small team or just me, it kind of felt easy, and I got complacent in that, I think. And as a result, that fall hurt so much, because I had to really look at myself and identify, why are we making these videos? Why are they being put out by us? What does it say? And how important is the views to us? Taste the feeling of having less views for a while, just to relearn again why I was making them in the first place. And so it was dangerous, but that pressure still exists now. I don't see myself as someone who has to get big views anymore. The pressure really isn't anything anymore to do with the growth or where the channel could be in the future in terms of digits. It's more so, I know people compliment the way that we make the videos and the editing, the writing, how unique they can be. And I feel a bit of pressure in making sure we can sustain that. Re-examining myself a lot, thinking of new, fresh ways to add to things, but never being buckled down by the idea of feeling like people are expecting you to do big things or whatever, because I think that's always a dangerous mentality to have. But for me, it was the fact that it was immediately followed by such a good run. And just that contrast of something that came so easily, felt so easy, then suddenly felt and looked so hard. It was as if you have to look at yourself, remember how you did it in the first place, even though nothing really changed. Super easy to look forward and think, oh yeah, okay, this is the path, this is where I'll be. That is irrelevant and impossible and something that you can't ever predict. It's going to go have ups and downs. That's really the only thing we can predict. I mean, I'll start by saying I don't know if this is the best thing for all YouTubers to listen to what I do here. But for me, and I can feel so strongly positive about something, open up the analytics and see a lower AVD, or some type of data that contradicts that and says that the general consensus was that this was an underperformer. And I will read that and shift my perception of my own video, which was completely concrete solid before, into this new arbitrary analysis of it, which I hate the feeling of that when my producer Jaden, he does a lot of that for me, where he will go through and find a lot of the big picture stuff. I'm very cool on big picture analytics of thinking about, okay, what is the types of audience, the type of platforms people are using, and learning about the science behind the whole brand. I just don't think art should be viewed that way, where it's you're looking at every tiny little bump and trying to smoothen it out. That doesn't compute in my head. And I'm more of just okay, let's take a big Excel spreadsheet and learn about the data of everything combined and learn about psychology of people in terms of the audience. The way I made the video is the way I wanted to make the video, and it will be the way I want to make the video in the future. And I'm trying to, people who don't want to see it that way don't belong on my channel, and I've got no fear of that in general. If you're here, I want you to be here, and I'm happy you're here. I'm not going to try and appease everyone if something's a hit or a miss, because those two adjectives don't really exist on a YouTube video. Try not to judge it too early and just let things breathe and simmer for a bit to capitalize on the fact that if you put in that extra 10% of effort, or even just a 10% of more of an abstract, unique idea when it comes to a sponsorship, it stands out to people so much. Like, I think it also came from these videos. There's such a scale to them. There's such a depth. That was important to me because, like I said, I kind of want these videos, they exist on YouTube, but in my mind, they're in a way being made for a cinema, they're something that deserves to be seen on a large screen, or that's the way that's what I picture in my head anyway when I'm making them. And so if it just cuts to a more conventional YouTube talking head where it's clearly a YouTuber talking about a brand, that feels like a complete step away from the direction I was taking the video in. The actual meat of a brand integration isn't really that important. It's those transitions in and out where people are, you're just seamlessly guiding someone into something different and then out of it again to tell a different point. In my latest video that's coming out end of November, early on in like a discussion, I was like, I don't really care about what we say in this brand integration. Let's just tick the boxes, what they want us to say. But how can we find the best possible way to transition in from the story we were just telling, and then use the integration to convert a new idea into a transition out? And those are the only 2 points that I'm looking at. It's a part I enjoy a lot of the time, and people might spend a lot of time on it. I do, I usually spend about a week on them.
One of my
I am trying more and more in each video to tell my story only with music. Over time, I've been cutting these things out. So even just face cam was the first thing to go. Those are no longer in my video. Because it felt like, yes, that was what was expected on YouTube. You have your face in it, and it felt like a cop out. I was using that and in sacrifice of trying to tell better stories. Then voiceover has been started getting reduced and then completely eliminated. So there's no me in them whatsoever anymore. It's all just the editing and the writing. I think those decisions that I've made, so take away the face cam in Adam Sandler, that was the first one, huge skyrocket. Take away the voiceover in Jim Carrey, huge skyrocket. Those are two videos that have completely blown up because I made a decision in it to do it in a different way. And I don't know if this is something that I could completely replicate over and over and over again, but there is something there. There is something to really examining your process and the way that you've gotten used to it, and then just reinventing the wheel almost, just taking what seems like an integral core part out of your pipeline and taking it out completely and just letting it evolve in a new way. Those are the times that I've made videos that have really hit new heights or I feel the most proud of. I want to just keep growing from strength to strength as a creator. And I mean, before we hit New Year's last year, I put out a tweet saying I will hit 1 million subscribers in 2023. And that was just a very arbitrary thing. It's like, okay, that's the goal that I'm going to try and seek out. It has to be something more with the impact or an influence that we're creating. I think I've got quite an identity that people are trying to replicate, type of reputation about the videos we're making that are a league above and could be looked at as almost a pinnacle of what to seek out when trying to create. I don't really know what I want. I'm just going to take it one day at a time and try and make the best videos we can make, fun with it. And wherever we are in 2, 3, 5 years, that's cool with me as long as the process is fun. That's really all it is. I've seen myself as an underdog. And I don't think that will ever go away, really. I don't want it to ever go away, to be honest, because I think that idea of always chasing a future version of yourself or the idea of there being competition, of you having to keep wanting yourself is the formula to becoming a better artist.
A window between worlds, the border of beauty, everywhere and somewhere. Which side is real? Or does it matter? If I just believe it, the frame will open the door. No more borders, boundaries, texture I can touch, absorb, a lifelike quality. My eyes were open, a marvel of vibrance, luminance, display, 1 billion colors. Take me with you. Wait, is that mine? I like it here. The frame took me away, while never leaving home. A film lover's home cinema. And when I'm done, no one would have guessed. Because the frame is...
Took that image, selects the back of her head, change her short hair into long hair. Directly after that, we can cut to the real life video of her stepping out on stage.
It's because of his refreshing modernization of the video essay format on YouTube.
Dodford actually does the work of collecting segments and sound bites across his subject's career and uses complex editing and storytelling techniques to allow the personality to tell their own story. And he's one of the few who's graduated from short form and then pioneered a new format in long form that many are trying to replicate.
Writes and storyboards what he edits before he opens the timeline.
How he's using AI to create a $40,000 film shoot with just $20.
The underutilized importance of marketing your content before you publish.
And the desire for creating premium content for YouTube.
I'm not exactly sure what the hell I am.
I came at it as the question I wanted to solve was everyone has this kind of preconceived idea of Adam Sandler.
With his stand-up, SNL, and iconic movie roles under his belt, the 1990s were truly Adam Sandler's.
God bless you all!
In Hollywood movies, but he's also naturally self-conscious and introverted.
What a great outfit that is. You got...
Being with you two and Mommy, that's the best life can get.
Which is just interesting for a character to explore in a video like this. And so I wanted to flesh that out, put a spotlight on him, let a whole collection of people who already knew that and felt that way about Adam Sandler and be like, aha, they get validated from it, which is great.
Some of us thought you were actually completely out of your mind when you cast Adam Sandler in this movie.
Originally, the whole concept of the video was going to be call something like Adam Sandler's comfort zone. Throughout the edit, I think I was always trying to signify that with every cut. I wanted him to look out of place. I wanted to cut to him feeling unnatural, like there was a specific point where we come out of the intro and we cut to him at Cannes Film Festival. That's just an environment, especially in 2002, where he just looked completely out of place. It was always the motivation. It's like, how can we make sure that every cut is lending to the point of this video, which was about showing how he's uncomfortable, but he's learned how to hone his comfort zone and perfect it. Now, because his comfort zone is so strong, he has that ability to step out of it.
He just makes me laugh.
Go fuck yourself!
He's funny to me.
And saying, well, I find him funny, and then cutting to him just doing something drastic and crazy.
He just makes me laugh.
And then coming back to the kind of sterile, cold Cannes interview panel, exactly what Paul saw in that moment and really make it feel like we were delving into his imagination. My favorite sequence in the Adam Sandler Paradox is the Uncut Gems montage.
Holy shit, I'm gonna come.
Flows with a lot of emotional intensity.
Your new film, Uncut Gems, your performance is crazy.
I was editing this Uncut Gems montage sequence, and I'm going between 3 or 4 sources, cutting back and forth between them.
Oh, no, what is happening? Go on, homie.
So I want the Celtics to cover. I want the Celtics halftime. I wanted to talk to you for a minute.
It comes to this like emotional climax where we're going through Adam Sandler's character, experience all these situations with other characters who are shitting on him essentially and telling him that he's worthless.
I heard you resurface your fucking swimming pool. You know how that makes me feel? No, don't resurface more important.
Is it too late? Should we maybe...
Are you serious right now?
I don't know. I just know.
Well, I'll tell you what I know. That's the dumbest fucking bet I ever heard of.
It builds up and builds up and builds up until eventually he's slammed into the wife. It's just looking at him like he's a miserable loser.
Get out of the car. Get the fuck out the fucking car.
I hate being with you. I hate looking at you.
No, I want the underwear. The underwear, you cocksucker.
And if I had my way, I would never see you again.
It's okay. Thank you. I'll meet you right back inside. It's all good now.
I'm really proud of that montage, but it's also something, it's a miracle that I even cut it. I think it's the only time that I've ever edited in flow state. I was not in my office here where I normally edit. I was at home.
Hello, my name is Adam Sandler. Can I get a hell yeah?
And we didn't have that context. And then you showed that clip again at the end, and it kind of felt like there was like a beautiful moment for me seeing that clip again.
Going full circle in everything. And I think you'll find it recurs a lot in these videos.
What do you think happens when we die, Keanu Reeves?
I like to introduce a question at the beginning and then answer it at the end.
I know that the ones who love us will miss us.
Emotional context. We've been through his whole journey. So now when you get to that starting point again, you're there with him and you feel like you're standing on stage with him. So that was one decision. Sometimes it's just, I want to start a sentence and then finish it later just so, again, you're going through the journey with them and that way it's more rewarding.
I loved his 90s movies, and I always thought that his later movies got a bit awful. And I also ignored his serious role. When he was doing the Grown-Ups and the Jack and Jill, I was part of that camp of, oh, fuck Adam Sandler, he's not funny anymore. He's especially with the low moment of his dad passing. So what does he do? He reconnects with his friends and makes some movies with his friends.
This is the part of the story that not everyone knows about. These are the obstacles that they overcame that are also not necessarily a secret, but are missing from kind of popular knowledge. And so it's just that simple, like 3-act structure, and at one of those acts, they're going to have to be down so you can get lifted back up again. So I don't overthink it. It's just necessary. It's just always about what's the low point, how did they overcome it, and how did they get to the high point. It's off a project and it's been on your mind for weeks, and then you put it out into the world and it's suddenly you can get deflated because I was so excited about it. And then ramping up that excitement for a new project can take a bit of time, but there's something that happens in the writing where you find an approach to it. Like some of these stories have been told a million times, but we always want to do it in a way that's never been done before. The documentary about Drew Barrymore, the one thing that gave me that fire inside me was Adam, my researcher, found these 2 clips, one of Drew Barrymore in 1997.
What's the dream? Same one I've had since I was little. To be on a farm, to be with lots of animals, to be with someone I love, and one night it'll rain and I'll know that I finally got there.
And the interviewer said, one night it will rain. What does that mean? What's that got anything to do with it? And she just says,
I love the rain.
And that's one clip. She said in 1997, reached that final point of success. And that lit me up inside. I was like, we have to do anything what it takes to make sure that we complete this documentary just so we can get to this ending because it was perfect.
What's the dream? Same one I've had since I was little. To be on a farm, to be with lots of animals, to be with someone I love. And one night it'll rain and I'll know that I finally got there.
One night it will rain? What does that got to do with it?
Whenever you can go out into the rain, do not miss the opportunity!
That cut to me, that symbolized that she had finally reached the point that the dream had come true, that she'd finally reached the point that she wanted to get to all these years. That meant that we really had to dig into the depths of when it felt like she wasn't
Do you recall your first experience with?
I was 10 or 11.
That reward at the end where she's finally overcome all of her obstacles and she's living the life that she always wanted, that's only going to have emotional satisfaction when we've been down into the trenches with her. The whole edit and the whole story, we're yearning for her to escape from these dark eras.
When and how did you go into rehab?
When I was 13, my mom put me in there.
It guided me the whole way through. I was like, okay, this is worth it, going through all of this dark era, because it's going to be the beauty at the end. A huge thing for me that I'm learning video by video is my branding. Now, especially that my actual voice is becoming reduced in these videos, I want my editing voice to get louder and louder and louder, become more clearly Dodford. And so I'm really pushing the idea of like 35mm film. I'm really pushing these kind of grainy, mysterious silhouettes in any images and videos that I'm finding. I want it to feel, it's hard for me to articulate it, but there's a real strong sense of like analog texture to the editing. I want it to all feel like it's something that you could have watched in the 70s, in the 80s. I'm kind of stripping away from contemporary modern editing technique. A video like that, if I'm finding an interview clip from the 80s and the 90s or whatever, and then I'm putting that on a TV that's in the 90s, that makes it feel more real. That makes it feel like you were there at the time, you're sitting down and you're watching it happen live.
Would you welcome, please, Drew Barrymore.
And it will give you a bunch of really high quality AI generated images. When you say that sentence and it can put a fun feeling in anyone's tummy, there are a few creative instances where it's been perfect for me, because I always want to approach these documentaries, give me all these ideas, and I can take something, even if it's just like an idea, and then run with it. That's been liberating. But also, there's something about Midjourney is that it does have that kind of uncanny vibe to it a lot of the time. And I've really lent into that. That's something that I've pushed. I don't want to hide away from it. I don't want to make it look like it's real. This has to be in the nightclub. She's like 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, getting drunk for the first time, taking coke for the shots of in a nightclub with all these adults surrounding her, looking at her, laughing at her, which all range and a little bit out of place, and the eye lines aren't looking right, and you're naturally put off by it. But then I can take that into After Effects and I can do a whole bunch of compositing. That's when I throw all my film grain effects and I do a bunch of chromatic aberration and make it feel like it's from that era. And so it ends up feeling like this real refined, cohesive style throughout the film.
That's a $10, $20, $40, $50,000 sequence, but you were able to make that, I guess, in an afternoon.
You're welcome, please, Drew Barrymore.
In the beginning of the Drew Barrymore documentary, one of the very first shots is her coming out on stage on her very first late night talk show event at 7 years old. And she's wearing this pink dress and a pink ribbon in her hair. In Midjourney, I wanted to prompt an image of her standing behind the stage curtains, about to go on stage. And we're behind her head. We're in her world, about to, into stardom. And so in Midjourney, I prompted the back of a little blonde girl's head behind stage curtain, about to go on stage, wide shot, cinematography, 1980s, 35mm film, symmetrical framing, center framing, 16:9 aspect ratio, Midjourney V5. It prompted this image, which is a wonderful shot which looks like it could be shot in the 1980s on 35mm film, but it's not wearing a pink dress and it's not long hair. I could select her dress and turn that into a pink dress as opposed to like a brown dress, and then select the back of her head and add a pink ribbon there, and it all looks pretty much exactly what I wanted to look like. And that's the opening shot. So then directly after that, we can cut to the real life video of her stepping out on stage wearing similar clothes.
Would you welcome, please?
Before a video comes out, I want there to be a palpable sense of, hype. And I want there to be kind of a buzz, a reputation about what the idea of a Dodford documentary. I'm trying to step away from what's been established in this quick and easily digestible content. If a video is up, the last thing I would say is go watch this now. That's just not on my vocabulary whatsoever. It's like, if it takes you 2 weeks, was initially a short form editor and I came from TikTok, and that has to be faster than the stuff I'm making now. Those decisions that you learn when you're a shorts editor, if you're doing it right, it's not being driven by how fast you can go. And that's what spawned retention-based editing that we all form. And so I feel like lots of the stuff I've learned from TikTok has directly converted into long form. And I feel like I use it, even though it's slower essentially. The same visual storytelling things that I'm using now, people have to be really creative to keep you in there, to keep you hooked. And the people who I love on TikTok, they don't rely on any of those hacks or cheats. They just know how to tell a story that well, that fast. And I feel like the best storytellers are the people who can say it quickly. On YouTube, now that you have this extra time, one of the things that I learned, the one I edited for you, Hayden, the Mr. Beast one a while ago, I ended up having to, sometimes in your scripts, there's like an abstract conceptual line that, you have to attach something to be standing on stage, and then he grew so tall that his head crashed through the roof, right? And so that's something that not everyone has that brain, and that was just a silly idea, but it's an example every day, it's because there's much faster turnarounds when you're creating TikToks. And so I was able to just work on something for a couple of days and then put it out, put it to bed, work on the next thing over and over and over and over again. Every single time, try something new. Over a while, after 18 months, I had built this library of skills that didn't exist before. And if I had just been working on longer projects,
top 20 directors in the world, and had next to them the number of years it's been since they've made a contemporary film. And it's all these established directors right now, Spielberg, Scorsese, whatever, they're making films set decades ago, and they're kind of stuck in the past. There needs to be a fresh new wave of creative minds who are passionate about telling stories now. Like for me, it was, I have to edited videos for clients for years just to like sort of keep up, just make sure I could pay the bills pretty much. And that eventually afforded me the opportunity to take a risk on myself.